Zoran Mamdani is having a very good month. We caught up with him about a month and a half ago at one of the Tesla protests, and I asked him the obvious thing for people in our corner of the universe. What do you say to people who have been disillusioned by the Bernie campaigns when you're running as a Democrat? This is what he said.
And a lot of people who came out of the Bernie movement, which a lot of our audience did, do not want anything to do with the Democratic Party. If you look at the polling, even with everything you just said about Cuomo, he's leading. You're behind Adams, I believe.
In second.
You're in second now?
Second place now as of a number of polls that came out last week. And I understand why people are frustrated with the Democratic Party because it's a frustration born of a party that has often left the working class behind across this country. This campaign, it's a campaign to show that we can in fact empower working class New Yorkers through our policy, through our party. And what I am excited about is that as a panel, while still being in that place, more than half of New Yorkers still don't know about our campaign. Those over the next 3 months, we're going to bridge that gap, and we're finding more people know about us, the more they support our campaign. I'm sorry, but I have to run. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
I have an interview with Crackhead Barbie booked in 5 minutes.
Yes, like 5 minutes after that, he got chased for like 4 blocks by Crackhead Barbie. We have the whole stream up. You can find it on both Rumble and YouTube.
She calls herself that, by the way. That's not us making an insult.
We do, yeah,
she goes by Crackhead Barbie.
No. We're old friends. We run into her all over the place. We ran into her in Chicago. Ran into her in Washington. Yeah, no, she's everywhere, that one. But hey, so at that time, he said he was already starting to pick up some momentum. And now he's within the margin of error. There's a plus or minus 3 points, so he's within 2 points. It's the statistical tie with Cuomo. Now, what's particularly remarkable about that, so it's 51-49 in the final round. We have ranked choice voting in New York City now. What's really remarkable is that that's in spite of the full court press the Zionists have been making against him, but we'll get into that. The demographics are kind of interesting because we think of the kind of conservatives as the white men. He's winning with men and he's winning with whites. So he's doing weakest actually with black voters, which is kind of remarkable. I don't know what they see in Andrew Cuomo. But yeah, Latinos, he's 10-point spread. Cuomo's winning in that demographic by 55. Black, he's got 72-28. Asian, 39-61. Mamdani's favor, perhaps not surprising, being South Asian himself. College educated, Mamdani 64 to Cuomo's 36. And very much this kind of reflects a Trump coalition. Andrew Cuomo, no college, 65 to Mamdani's 35. 45 plus, 67, Andrew Cuomo, 33, Mamdani. Under 45, 22, Cuomo, 78, Zoran Mamdani. And female, 54, Cuomo, 46, Mamdani. It's a little surprising given the background on Cuomo.
He's doing better with women than with men.
He's doing better with women. You would not have seen that coming. Now, Cuomo, I think one of the reasons that Mamdani could pull off an upset is very often in New York City, you have people who are basically Republicans who are registered as Democrats because Republicans have so little chance of winning an election in New York. So in order to have some influence over who the mayor is going to be, they're registered as Democrats. They can vote in the Democratic primary. Cuomo is really, like, next to Joe Biden, probably the most despised figure to emerge out of COVID among conservatives, and not only conservatives, among many people, but conservatives in particular. I think that is a big part of why Mamdani is able to, at least in the polling, overcome the Zionist attacks on him, which, saying Israel cannot be a Jewish state in New York, that's considered pretty much a third rail in New York City politics. It's almost like saying it when you're running for prime minister of Israel that you don't think it should be a Jewish state to in New York say you don't think it should be a Jewish state. But this got a lot of play. This is our own tweet of it from the debate last week where Mamdani first made headlines by refusing to bend the knee. Now, this is the full cut that we did. 4 out of 9 candidates said their first foreign trip would be to Israel.
You go first. Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform. Because ultimately, we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't say it has a right to exist as a Jewish state.
His answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike you, I answer questions very directly.
All right,
and I want to be very clear. I believe every state should be a state of equal rights.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr.
We're all against equal rights.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family, and it could coincide with my young son Miles' bar mitzvah, if you'd like to have his bar mitzvah.
Okay, about a minute.
Claven. Yeah, so, okay, that was pretty remarkable to see a guy running for mayor of New York who didn't go the safe, so-called liberal position. Yes, I believe in a 2-state solution. That would have been the easy way out of that question. So did he back off in the days after? No, not at all. He went on Good Day New York, and he was asked about this, and he reiterated that position.
Like you, did not want to make a definitive statement on this. Do you support Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state?
I support Israel's right to exist as a state with equal rights. I believe that every state...
Why not as a Jewish state?
Because I'm not comfortable supporting any state that has a hierarchy of citizenship on the basis of religion or anything else. I think that in the way that we have in this country, equality should be enshrined in every country in the world. That's my belief.
All right, let's talk.
I would love to watch someone just turn it back on the reporter and just say, and why don't you believe it in that? What is wrong with what I just said? What is your objection, whoever asked me that question, to equal rights? Why are you against equal rights? That's who deserves to be interrogated, the people who are against equal rights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they had...
This is why I can't run for office, because I would get kicked off of every show and never allowed back in.
Maybe not. Look, he's doing all right.
Yeah, because he didn't do what I would have done.
He definitely has a conciliatory tone. So he there was a round table talk back at a Jewish synagogue, at a pretty well-known old Jewish synagogue here in New York. And this is a good example of the Zionist apoplexy about this. New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani announced a plan to ignore state and federal law in order to enact BDS and enforce ICC to comply with international law. If your hatred for Israel is more important than following American law, you shouldn't be elected to public office. All right, so we're not going to play the whole thing, but towards the tail end, he addresses the question of whether he would arrest Netanyahu, and he also talks a little bit about his support for BDS.
Question around Benjamin Netanyahu. I was asked what I would do after he had just been issued an arrest warrant by the International Court of Justice. My answer is the same whether we are speaking about Vladimir Putin or Netanyahu. I think that this should be a city in compliance with international law, and we have seen other countries across the world who are signatories to the ICC state that they would honor that same request, be it Canada or other countries in Europe. And their honoring of it meant that Netanyahu did not travel there. And I think it is important to show leadership in a time when it is sorely missing. And there are some who may say that the United States is not a party to the International Criminal Court. Thank you, Whitney. I knew you were going there. And to that I say that there are times when courage is required. There was a time when it was not legal for same-sex couples to be married in this country. And still, then Mayor Gavin Newsom issued marriage certificates for those very couples in defiance of that legislation.
Now I got to say, in the shitlib homeworld of New York, throwing that back at them is a very smart tactic.
What I am trying to showcase is a belief that international law is something that should be honored, should be respected, and something that we should actually bring our city into compliance with.
And just to be very, very clear, so yes, you will continue to support the boycott of Israel as...
I can't hear you.
I said, yeah, just to be very, very clear. So yes, you will continue to support the boycott of Israel if you are elected mayor.
What I would do is ensure that any of my actions moving... Sorry. Let me know when you... That any of my actions moving forward as the mayor of New York City would not be in violation of any of those international laws, and ensure that compliance is at the heart of it. That's all I would focus on.
Mr. Wall.
Okay, pretty based answers, I must say. Now, this is how out of touch the libs are with the general society. Although, given that this is the shitlib homeworld, maybe this plays for them. Yes, it's shocking, but Zoran Mamdani indeed called Barack Obama a liar and evil, which is why he can't deny it. Cuomo brought this up at the debate. So Mamdani tweeted out, this is the New York Post, did a story about this. I can't trust quotes from Barack Obama, not since his continued lying in the face of Snowden's NSA revelations. So beyond Israel, yeah, some pretty interesting economic policies, some I've never heard before. The free public transportation. He's not the first to propose this. Apparently, I didn't even know this. We subsidize supermarkets, and he's proposing making supermarkets and grocery stores public so that they won't have any overhead on land. They won't be paying any rent, and they'll be able to bring down the price of food. It's an interesting proposal. So he was asked what progressives are always asked. Nobody's ever asked how you're going to pay for bombs, how are you going to pay for military, but progressives are always asked how you're going to pay for public goods. So this was his answer.
Some of the things I've heard that are part of your platform are rent freeze.
Yep.
200,000 new affordable homes to build.
There we go.
$30 minimum wage by 2030. Free buses. And then city-owned grocery stores. I'm just wondering, because obviously, like, politicians are liars. So
true.
How can we trust that these things are achievable?
So these are all things that are a question of political will. Because most politicians will try and tell us that anytime you want to stand up for working class people, it's unrealistic. And when we're talking about a rent freeze, Bill de Blasio did that 3 times. There's precedence for that. When we're talking about city-run grocery stores, that pilot program, which would guarantee lower prices for milk, for eggs, for bread, for the staples of day-to-day life, would cost $60 million. The city is currently set to spend more than $140 million to give it to corporate supermarkets. So this would be a fraction of what we're already set to spend. When we're talking about free buses and universal childcare, that is something that we could pay for entirely by raising New York State's corporate tax rate to match the socialist utopia of New Jersey. So that's 7.25% here to 11.5% there. 200,000 affordable homes. We can pay for this by municipal bonding. We can pay for this by using vouchers that landlords are rejecting for New Yorkers that are already approved. We can pay for this by using vacant city lots that we have. And we're already paying for this in some way because our refusal to build actually affordable housing, like for a family of 4 making $72K a year, for a low-income senior, for one of the 100,000 New Yorkers living in shelters, it is pushing working class people outside of the city. It is pushing them into tax bases of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We need to stop doing that and actually keep people in the city they call home.
Now, one of our viewers called my attention to this because I've said with Mamdani, he's remarkably polished for a politician who has not really been playing at a high level of the game for very long. But he has a pretty interesting pedigree. NYC mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani's father, Columbia professor Mahmoud Mamdani, played a visible role in the university's pro-Hamas encampments. Zionist account, obviously. He called for Israel's dismantlement and compared Israelis to Nazis. Okay, based. His mother is a pretty successful film director. She directed Mississippi Masala. So just interesting fun fact. Now, he is definitely benefiting from the fact that he's running against Andrew Cuomo. Landlord lobby will boost Cuomo with $2.5 million spend. He's already at the kind of corruption that we associate with Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo Super PAC got $2.7 million boost from donors business who have business before the city. Okay, so New York campaign finance laws, if you have business before the city, which pretty much any real estate developer always has business before the city, you can only give $400 to a campaign, but we have our own versions of super PACs. So they're giving the money to the super PACs. Very often they're giving Cuomo the $400 on the same day that they then put millions of dollars into his super PAC, which is not technically illegal, but you're not allowed to coordinate, very much like at the federal level. Looks pretty coordinated. So if you look at who's giving money to his super PAC, Fix the City, real estate is the largest, over 28%, finance 22%. The ride delivery apps, Keaton will have a little bit on that later in the show, over 9. Unions, very small amount, a little over 6%. So this is the usual coalition of corrupt interests that would support Cuomo. So really, Mamdani could not have a better foil to run against. If he was going to have a chance at winning a Democratic primary, you could not find a better rival than Andrew Cuomo for his brand. So he was endorsed, as you probably know, by AOC. They put out an ad. This is the Puerto Rico Day Parade, which we have every year.
Puerto Rico no se vende. No se vende. Puerto Rico no se vende. Puerto Rico no se vende. Hello, everyone. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I am here loud and proud to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 for mayor of New York City. Early voting starts on June 14th. The primary election is June 24th. So early vote, fill out your ballots, and make sure that you do not rank Andrew Cuomo on your ballot. Don't do it, folks. We are going to rank our ballot Zohran #1 for a New York City that can be affordable to all of us.
All right. Now, to be clear, I was not crazy about the way that Mamdani answered that question about the Bernie coalition. I think it was very much a politician's answer. He, kind of nodded to it and then pivoted. And, stuff like that does not thrill me. Definitely getting DSA vibes there. That having been that, you're muted.
Sorry, I was going to say I think he's a member of DSA. I know he's backed by DSA. I think he is a member though.
Is he actually a member of DSA?
So.
Oh yeah. He is. Yeah. He is, because actually somebody was pointing out DSA forbids their members from going to Israel. Somebody was arguing, well, he couldn't go to Israel if he is going to stay a member of DSA. So yeah, man, I can't really say you're a politician trying to get votes. Emma Vigeland shows up. You tell her, I can't take a picture with you. But at the same time, I think he is probably more in that lane than in any kind of, real radical leftist position, which means what happens when he gets into office? Oh, the usual, I would have, but this thing happened and these people blocked me and that. That having been said, he gained a lot of respect for me as a native New Yorker, taking that position on Israel and not wavering from it. That is a tough, tough position to take in New York City. Even, we talked about it a little bit strategically, he might have felt like, well, that's my lane. That's my path. I'm not going to out Zionist these people. So I might as well go in the other direction. New York City, even that is a very tactically risky gambit. So, when you look at these people, they're professional politicians, you always have to ask yourself, how much do they mean it? How much is he just saying, well, my path is on the back of the progressive movement. That's the only movement where I might be able to generate enough enthusiasm to pull an upset. I'm too much of an outsider to go through the establishment lane and actually win. I can only win as an insurgent, so I might as well just completely commit to the ideology of insurgency. I think it's probably some of both. I think given the background of his parentage, I think he probably does have these radical beliefs. He's also pretty slick and he's pretty political if you watch how he handles himself. All that to say, yeah, man, I'll vote for him in the primary. He's got my vote. The position he took, I am officially endorsing Zoran Mamdani.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Russell Dobular.
I made
Zoran
news.
Mamdani. Yes,
and that's it. Now his poll numbers are gonna go.
Yeah, that's it. That's
gonna
the
get
boost
the due dissidence bump
that he needed. Yeah, exactly.
With reservations, but I live in New York. I will vote for him in the primary.
Well, the Israel issue, just to give people an idea of how toxic that can be in New York City politics, that is what sunk Andrew Yang. When you remember in 2021, Andrew Yang was running for mayor. He was polling very well. Obviously, the primary is in June. In May of 2021 is when the last major flare-up of violence in Palestine took place. Andrew Yang put out a statement supporting Israel. A lot of the progressives who were backing him got mad at him. And so he waffled on that and sort of, moderated, which of course pissed off the Israel supporters. And it wasn't enough for the people who were pissed at him. And what happens, his support just imploded. Right. It could be a very, very toxic issue for a New York politician. And I think, in this moment, obviously he realizes this is his horse. If he has the pro-Palestine people behind him, you just got to go all in on that and hope that there's enough there to get you over the line. Now, if there is enough there to get him over the line in the primary, which is a possibility at this point, obviously, and it's a possibility I did not anticipate, just given the Democratic primary voter base's track record of just miserable choice after miserable choice, combined with the fact that in New York City it's much worse than in the average place, and in the average place it's quite bad. I still say if he wins the primary, Cuomo runs, and it's a four-way race, at which point he becomes the underdog once again. So it is a long, long, long road to City Hall for him. A lot has to go his way, both in the primary and in the general, where I expect Andrew Cuomo will stay in, even if he comes up short in the primary, because then it's a four-way race. At that point, fucking Eric Adams even has a shot, because the Republicans may figure, you know what? If the liberals are going to split between Cuomo and Mamdani, what's the point in voting for a Republican who has no chance? Eric Adams becomes the de facto Republican in the race. Imagine at the end of all this, he gets reelected. Imagine that.
That would be a very New York
Eric
ending,
Adams
frankly.
gets reelected after all this.
But you could look at it another way. Adams and Cuomo could split the shitlib vote, and that could advantage Mamdani.
Yeah, the only problem with that theory
But
is
then
that...
again, you want a funny outcome, that could end up with Sliwa.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because you basically got this three-way split among the Democratic coalition at that point.
I mean, yeah, it is interesting. In that scenario, anything is possible because now all of a sudden, whoever gets 30 is likely to win. It's not a race to 50; it's a race to pretty much 25 or 30 at that point. So it would be pretty crazy. But yeah, man, the Buffalo primary a few years back was a lesson in what happens when the Democratic establishment candidate loses. They just run as an independent. They're not loyal to the party. They're just loyal to their own power and their own self-interest. And so the party is usually a vessel through which they can pursue that. If that becomes a dead end, they'll just go independent, and I suspect that might very well happen. Now, the interesting question, we haven't asked this question, is what if Mamdani comes up a few points short in the primary? Does he run as an independent? Like as long as it's close, he could stay in.
Okay,
now, he doesn't have the money.
I
that
don't
Cuomo
think
has.
so, because see, that's where I read him as an AOC. I don't think he crosses the party like that. I don't think he does.
Well, that would be interesting.
I don't think he's as radical as he pretends. I think he is probably more radical than some of the people who pretend to progressivism legitimately. But I think he works the angles, man. That guy's a professional politician. He handles himself that way. He reads that way. I don't think he really goes at the party like that.
Well, that's the interesting question, because if Cuomo loses, I think Cuomo will. And we already know what happened in Buffalo. Byron Brown did.
You can get away with that shit if you are good with the establishment. If you do that as an actual insurgent outsider, they will never fucking forgive you for that.
Yeah.
One element to this, I think, that's worth examining in terms of why he's surging like this. New York, and particularly Manhattan, is unusually youth oriented. The pace of it, the way that it's laid out, it's really not good for families. So people, when they get married and they start having kids, they tend to leave.
Right.
So I think part of what's happening here is, man, I mean, the younger generation is pro-Palestine. They're more progressive. And I think they probably have more of a numerical presence than they would in most cities. I think New York probably skews under 45 more than most places in America.
Yes, that is true. That is definitely true. And that is definitely something else that creates an opportunity for him. The vote is 2 weeks from today. So we'll probably be live that night, I would imagine, covering the results. Why not?
Please clap.